Bills Mafia, what's going on? Happy Victory Monday to your Monday edition of First and Five. I'm your host, Dave Myers, joined on Mondays, as always, by my guy, Peter DiBiase. Peter, how you feeling today? Victory Monday, brother.
It's always good to talk about a victory on a Monday, but no, it's even better that it happened against the Chiefs. That was a remarkable game. Like, if you're just an NFL fan loving football, that was a terrific game. And that late window wasn't anything special until the Raiders-Jaguars game became chaotic. But like, Rams blew out the Saints, and then you had the Bills-Chiefs. So if you're an NFL fan, you always enjoy that matchup. But and you and I were talking off air, Dave, that we thought that game was maybe somewhat in control, and then it kind of flipped on a couple plays, and then our hearts kind of almost exploded. But a win's a win. You win by 7 at home. You're 6-2, and it feels like the team is kind of moving in the right direction.
It doesn't feel like it was a 7-point win, though. It felt like when it was 10-7 Chiefs, I was like, all right, it's going to be one of these games. It's going to be back and forth, blow for blow, and then Josh went down, they scored, then they scored again, and then when it was 28-13, I'm like, all right, like, the offense gets the ball back, this game's going to be over. And then weird things seem to always happen in these games. That 4th and 17, we talked about it before we came on, that 4th and 17, we were trying to figure out what Joey Bosa was doing, and like I told Peter, I went back and watched the L22, and it looked like, at first, I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you dropping in coverage? There's no one there. And then if you go back and watch it, it looks like Mahomes was trying to actually going to roll out there, but then he saw that Bosa was there, so then he backed up into the pocket. So it was a weird thing. But, yeah, it's a Victory Monday. It was nice to see the Bills' defense as extremely aggressive, I think, that we've seen them since 2023, which, ironically enough, was when Sean McDermott was calling plays. So, again, he can spin this whole me and Bobby are calling the plays together. We're doing this. That was a McDermott game yesterday. That was a McDermott masterclass in just getting after Mahomes. It was very reminiscent of the Super Bowl with what the Buccaneers were able to do to Patrick Mahomes. He was just uncomfortable. He got hit on, it seemed like every drive he was just getting nailed. That play on the sideline by 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐚𝐽, I think I've watched that video like 100 times. Like, I honestly, like, that was something. And to have no flag on that play was remarkable. But we're going to break down the Bills offense, the Bills defense, the coaching matchup from yesterday, as far as Sean McDermott, Andy Reid, Joe Brady versus Spags, and then we'll give out some game balls. So first and foremost, Peter, how do you feel the Bills offense looked, knowing that for the last, I don't know, since the Patriots game, everybody's been bitching and complaining about the downfield passing attack. What's wrong with Josh? He seems out of rhythm. He's bailing on the pocket too early. And a lot of people said that this needs to be a Joe Brady game. How do you feel about the offense, how they performed, and how everything looked with a nice balanced attack yesterday?
Yeah, look, Josh, 23 for 26, right? So when you complete that many passes and you throw 3 incompletions, and one of them a couple throwaways, like, that's a really good performance. He seemed in control, Dave. Like, he seemed like, for the most part, he could do whatever he wanted offensively, and he didn't take that many risks. But every risk he took, like the Elijah Moore deep ball, Dalton Kincaid down the field, Dawson Knox down the field, those were timely plays, right? Like, he wasn't forcing everything into coverage. The only one was probably that Elijah Moore play, but the safety was kind of late coming over the top, so it was a good throw. But he took everything the defense gave him. They love using 𝐿 in the screen game, maybe one too many times on a 3rd and 10. But they ran the ball really well in the first half, but the Chiefs adjusted to that. So in the second half, we're going to talk about coaching in a bit, and I think the Bills coaching staff was great yesterday. The one thing I think you got to give props to the Chiefs, they sold out for the run in the second half, right? They were dominant against the run, and that hindered the Bills offense a little bit in the second half. Like, the Bills offense in the first half was probably like 9.5 out of 10. Like, that's where you're kind of grading it. The Bills 21 points against a really good defense. In the second half, they were more like a 6.5, 7 out of 10, where they were good, but they weren't great, and they kind of kept the Chiefs in the game at times. My biggest, I guess, problem with what the Bills offensively did, and this has kind of become a thing, is when they don't, and they talk about this on the broadcast all the time, and they talked about it yesterday, and this is me I'm nitpicking. They scored 28 points. The offense was good. Josh had 3 touchdowns, Cook 114 yards. And Kincaid was great. And Shakir, I'm nitpicking, but that's what you people do. When they don't have a successful first down play, they look really off scheduled. like really off schedule. And I'm not saying they need to have a 6-yard first down play, but when they don't get anything on first down, if it goes to 2nd and 10, if it's 2nd and 7, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
Run the ball again. You can keep 𝐿 in the screen pass. When they don't get anything, when it's a dead play on first down and you have a 2nd and 10, they seem like they're out of their elements because they're not consistently throwing the ball down the field. And then do you run the ball on 2nd and down? But then what if you only get 3 yards? There's a 3rd and 7. Like they don't seem like they know what to do when it's 2nd and 10. When the Bills are first down play is maybe 4+ yards, they look like unstoppable. They can do whatever they want. 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, you can run the ball again. You could throw a screen pass to 𝐸𝐶. You can do whatever you want offensively with this Bills, and they're dangerous offensively when they're 4+ yards on first down. When you get that 1st and 10, they seem like they're a little bit off scheduled, and we saw it a couple of times. The 𝐸𝐶 3rd down screen pass on 3rd and 10 was probably the worst call we've seen in a while.
I jumped out of my chair. I was like, oh my God, what are we doing on 3rd and 10?
That was bad. So the offense was great. 𝐿𝐾𝐨 starting to break out. Like 𝐾𝐨, when he's healthy, he didn't even play a ton of snaps. 𝐸𝐶 was good. Knox had a big catch. Coleman had a couple catches, and they ran the ball well. But when they get off schedule, they seem a little like frantic.
Yeah, and to me, you mentioned Dalton Kincaid. I like the fact that if you watch that first touchdown, he completely juked the defender.
Yeah,
and that wasn't the defender just fell. It was the cut in, cut out, and Josh was just like, all right, you're wide open. And then that big 40, I think it was 46, 47-yard play that he had. It was like he cut across the field, and I wish that the Bills would implement that more. And I was screaming for that last week. I'm like, can we get some guys cutting across the field that's not within, 5 to 6 yards? It's downfield more, and that's where Kincaid can hurt you. And I feel like we're just starting to see that rapport grow and the confidence that Josh has in Kincaid every week. And I mean, he's looking like a top 5 tight end right now. He's making big plays at the right times in the game. Like it's not just, okay, he had a 23-yarder. It didn't really amount to much. I mean, he had that touchdown that set the tone for the game early. He had that big reception later on. And I just like the fact that Josh is just trying to get him involved and seems to trust him more and more. Let's talk about James Cook for a minute, because I watched the All-22. I stayed up until like 2 a.m. watching the All-22 because I had to wait for it to come out first. But James Cook's vision is next level. And I saw some stuff that Brian Baldinger put out this morning too. I think he released it on X. But James Cook's patience has become such an asset to his game. It seems like when he gets the ball, he's not shot out of a cannon. It's like he gets the ball, and when he gets to that first level, it's like he waits for a crack or just a small seam. And I've said this before, his frame makes it harder for opposing defenders to try to take him down because he's not a big guy. He's not like Jonathan Taylor with that huge base where you can just kind of grab around his waist and his legs. And when he gets to that second level, he just has the ability. It's just ridiculous the amount of athleticism that he has to just take it outside and just make guys miss. And I feel like you look at this, the stats, 27 carries for 114 yards. It wasn't super flashy, but when it was like you mentioned, the start of the drives, if it was first down and he got 7, if it was the next first down and he rips off 6 or 8, it's like the Bills' engine is Josh Allen, obviously, but James Cook is slowly becoming like a top 3 back, and it's guaranteed that every game he's going to get you close to 100 yards. What's your thoughts overall on James Cook and kind of where we were last year, saying maybe that season was an outlier because of the touchdown total and stuff like that, to where he's at now? He's going to hit 1,000 yards against Miami, and it's only week 10. So what's your thoughts on James Cook?
Also, the fact that it's already week 10 is crazy to me.
It's insane.
Flies by. No, he was great yesterday. And you asked me last week where I have him, like in my top 5, top 7 kind of running backs. What?
Has that changed?
It's definitely changing. And I was like, and we're talking about Saquon Barkley, we're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey. Those guys are obviously incredible running backs. I saw a tweet, I saw a stat today that NFL leaders in percent of carries that have resulted in 5+ yards gain, right? So percentage of rushes that James Cook has that nets him 5 or more yards. James Cook is first in the NFL in And that's at 45.8% of his runs. So we're nearing 50% of every time James Cook gets a rush, it's 5+ yards. That's a crazy stat. And it goes back to when I said keeping the Bills on schedule on offense. Running the ball on first down and second down keeps the offense on schedule. If James Cook is getting 5-6 yards per carry right there, that keeps the offense on schedule. But no, he was terrific. He's turning into an elite running back and a guy that they don't even use out of the backfield in the passing game. Like a guy that I still think they should. There's other ways to incorporate him in this offense, and they don't do that yet. He was also the first running back to get 100 yards against the Chiefs in 24 games. So heading into this game, the Chiefs in 24 games did not give up 100 yards to a running back.
That's insane.
Cooks gets it, right? So he's going up against one of the better rush defenses we see in the NFL. Panthers were one of the better rush defenses we've seen in the NFL last week too. So he's elite. And you mentioned Josh Allen's the engine of this offense. The Bills don't go anywhere without Josh Allen. We all know that. But James Cook is the focal point of this offense, if that makes sense. Like the Bills are a rushing team. Like if someone asks me, are the Bills more of a passing team or they're more of a rushing team? I'm probably going to lean towards they're more of a rushing team. And that's not a bad thing because they're still a great passing team. Like Josh just threw for 273 yards in a game. So the Bills, I think, obviously they can do both, but they're turning into a rushing team. And I think that's a good thing for them. And you mentioned was last year an outlier. And you could argue it. You can always argue stuff. What we've seen through 8 games this year, it's not an outlier. James Cook is like the real deal when it comes to superstar top tier running backs in the National Football League.
What do you think was going through James Cook's mind when the Bills lined up to do the tush push, and you can see James Cook like pushing Josh Allen, and then he kind of like nudges him, and then when he realizes it was a touchdown, he just looked like he was disheveled. I'm like, he's probably thinking, man, just give me the ball.
I don't know which tush, because Josh had 2 tush pushes.
I don't remember I think it was the second one.
The one where James rolled over a defender.
Yeah.
That was a touchdown.
Yeah.
He was never down.
I agree with you 100%.
I was yelling at my team. It didn't matter. But sometimes when you watch Bills Chiefs games and we get screwed out of a call and then it matters. It didn't matter. Yeah. Josh scored a touchdown. But James Cook is obviously getting a couple touchdowns away from him. He's a team player. It's not the end of the world, right?
He'll get his.
But he did score that touchdown. He rolled over a defender and reached over the goal line. Like he was not down. And I do think forward progress is completely broken in the NFL. So they blow the whistle at random times.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that this is a formula? We talk about Kincaid, Shakir, and Cook. You think that should be the formula going forward? Or are you in the camp of we need another guy? Because we've seen this before where the Bills leaned heavily on Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis kind of got his, when it was available, or you go back even to when Emmanuel Sanders was here, Cole Beasley, John Brown, whichever. But is there anything that happened yesterday with the recipe that Joe Brady dialed up and how efficient Josh Allen was in the passing game where this might deter Brandon Beane? Twofold question here. Is this a recipe for success for the Bills? Can it be successful? And do you think this deters Brandon Beane from making an acquisition of a wide receiver by tomorrow, trade deadline?
To answer your first question, I think it can be a recipe for success, but there are going to be games where you need a receiver. I'm going to put Cook to the side for a second, strictly passing game, because they don't use Cook in the passing game. Kincaid had 6 catches yesterday. Shakir had 7, right? So they combined for 13 catches. They had 14 targets, right? So that's obviously super efficient there. They need someone else to step up. But yesterday they kind of did. If you think about it, right? You had a catch for 30 yards for Dawson Knox. You had a catch for 28 yards for Elijah Moore. You had a catch for Jackson Hawes for 18 yards. Keon had 2 catches for 17 yards. And then Ty Johnson had 2 catches for 12 yards, and Cook had a catch, right? So if you put that together, that's kind of like a third option almost, if you think about it. They do need someone else to step up in the sense of getting open, right? Like, is it Keon? Is it Curtis Samuel? Is it when Joshua Palmer comes back? Like, that's another kind of tidbit you got to think of. Like, when is Palmer coming back? That injury didn't look great, but the fact that he's still week to week and wasn't put on IR makes me feel like there's a chance he plays this week or the following week against Tampa Bay, probably more likely. It's probably Keon Coleman. Like Keon Coleman needs to be that option. I know he had 2 catches for 17 yards, and we talked about it last week. It looks like Josh is not like Josh had him open for a play in the flat. He threw it to him for an 11-yard first down. He had him open for about 5 minutes on that play, and wasn't looking at him.
I think Keon was like, "Are you going to throw it? I'm still here."
Like, he was like, eventually,
you're waiting.
He's wide open. So Keon is that guy, right? He's the guy that needs to step up because I don't think it's Curtis Samuel. I don't think it's 𝐿_SHAVERS at all. It's probably Palmer or Keon. But no, nothing yesterday should take you away from the fact that the Bills probably should still add a weapon.
100%.
I don't like, there's nothing from yesterday. Like if with 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭, they were great yesterday, but they need someone else. They need someone else to take the top off the defense. They really do, because Keon's not that guy. Maybe Joshua Palmer is that guy. I don't trust Elijah Moore in the sense of like, I don't think he gets enough game reps to be that guy. And I don't know where he is at this point of his career. Made a really nice catch yesterday. That was a really nice catch by Elijah Moore. They don't use Curtis Samuel. 𝐿_SHAVERS is more of a special teamer, kind of good blocker on the outside kind of receiver, which is very needed in the NFL. So it's Keon, in my opinion. But yes, you have to add someone. I don't know who it is. I would still want to get Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed. I would still want to get one of those two guys. The Brian Thomas thing is interesting because he's completely not used in Jacksonville for some really odd reason. But I would be utterly shocked if Jacksonville gave up on Brian Thomas Jr. in his second year. Like, that would shock me. That would be like, you don't see those type of trades in the NFL a lot. That's more of like a baseball NBA type of trade. I would be shocked. But yes, go get someone. If it's a Rashid Shaheed who's kind of has no quarterback, if it's Chris Olave who has no quarterback, I know they say they don't want to trade Chris Olave, but like, why wouldn't you trade Chris Olave? Like, you're rebuilding, like try to get some assets depending on what they're asking for. But yeah, I would go get a weapon.
Yeah, I was just looking back on like all the Jakobi Meyers stuff and things like that. And I don't mind Jakobi Meyers, but I feel like we have him on the roster already. Like, I feel like he's not an upgrade. What's that?
Is he an upgrade over the guys we have?
Maybe over Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
He's an upgrade, but like you said, you got Joshua Palmer coming back, and I feel like Bean might say, all right, well, you know, we put up 28 points. Josh was efficient. We got the guys involved that we wanted to get involved. We spent a first-round draft pick on Dalton Kincaid. We just paid Khalil Shakir, and James Cook ran the ball effectively. So I don't know if Brandon Bean looks at that and says, by adding somebody, does it take away from somebody else? Where we could just have the guys that we have that are kind of the everybody eats mantra, right? Like you said, Curtis Samuel had 1 reception yesterday. 𝐿_SHAVERS had 1 reception. Elijah Moore had 1 reception. And the Elijah Moore reception kind of bothers me. I'm glad that it happened, but I'm like, where has this been all season? You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're playing a really good team. Why wasn't this on display against the Jets? Why wasn't this on display against the Saints? Why wasn't this on display against teams that aren't as good as the Chiefs? Like, why are we able to just dial up a 28-yard pass, which was a nice contested catch by Elijah Moore? And I feel like, were they just waiting to just, maybe we'll call it against the Chiefs because they're not expecting it? But you have Elijah Moore, who's Rashid Shaheed, right? He's a speedster. He can get downfield. And I just feel like he's not being used in the right way. I'm not going to complain too much because it was a nice win for the Bills. The offense and Josh looked efficient. Cook looked really good. And like I said, Kincaid and Shakir did what they usually do. So let's flip it over to the defense, because I think there's a lot to unpack with the Bills defense yesterday. Unfortunately, Michael Hoyt, it's an Achilles injury. He's going to be out for the year. He's going to need surgery. McDermott said that yesterday, which is such a punch in the gut, because you saw the energy that he brought to those guys, and you saw how that energy became infectious. I mean, you saw guys like Joey Bosa seemed like he was kind of amped up. It seemed like Greg Rousseau was kind of animated yesterday. So I feel like having him in there, he was like that spark for, you know, one of those guys that's just going to keep everybody riled up. So what's your thoughts going forward about the Bills defense based off of what we've seen, not just this week, obviously last week against the Panthers and Andy Dalton, but the Bills are able to make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable, it seemed like, all game. What's your thoughts about how the defensive line performed? And then we can go into the secondary and stuff like that. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, there's no doubt that Sean McDermott's calling plays. You mentioned in the beginning of the show, and look, is he fully calling plays? I don't know. He's definitely involved in the play calling. I feel like that's, and he's not going to say it because you're not going to throw your DC under the bus like that, but he is. The Bills hit Patrick Mahomes yesterday, Dave, 14 times.
Yeah.
And that was the most he's been hit in a game in his career, right? Like that was more than the Tampa Bay Super Bowl. That's more than he's ever experienced. So the Bills got after the Chiefs. And when I was part of Built in Buffalo, when I was doing my weekly show, we've always talked about how the Bills needed to get a pass rush, like consistent pass rush. They have a consistent pass rush. I don't think the Michael Hoyt injury is awful. It's terrible. It's heartbreaking because in the 2 games he's played, he's become a fan favorite. He's been energetic and he's produced. It's not like a fan favorite that hasn't produced. Like he's a fan favorite that's been producing and has made an impact.
Right.
The Bills, that blow is not as bad as like the Ed Oliver blow to this defense, in my opinion. Like this is a pass rush with AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau, and then you have obviously Joey Bosa, who's playing at an elite level right now. You throw in either Landon Jackson or Javon Solomon, right? I still think the Bills' pass rush is going to be totally fine. I do. It's unfortunate because you were moving Hoyt inside a little bit. You were keeping him on the outside. He was very versatile, so that is unfortunate. But the Bills were able to get after Mahomes, right? Like Bosa looked elite. Groot was good. Epinesa was good. Epinesa, you said, had that hit on Mahomes by the sideline, which was a terrific hit. And you can see the aggressiveness on the Bills' defense. Christian Benford had a sack on a corner blitz.
Yep.
When was the last time that it's probably happened? Maybe this year, but like really it's happened or it's worked where corners got off the edge. And a lot of more times it's Teron Johnson, as he's the nickel corner, didn't play yesterday, but he got off the edge and made a sack, and Christian Benford had a sack. So Bills pass rush and defense were getting after it. I thought the run defense was good. You were missing Ed Oliver, who's going to be back potentially around the playoffs, and you're missing DaQuan Jones, who should be back in a week or so. So that would actually be a big get. But I do think the Bills run defense was solid. I don't know if it was anything special, but I thought Hunt ran 4.5 yards per carry. He had 11 carries for 49 yards, right? 79 total yards by the Chiefs on the ground with a 4 yards per carry. So without having Oliver and without having DaQuan Jones, rush defense was good, and the Bills created havoc on Mahomes all day.
Yeah, and like you said, when Hoyt went out, I watched a lot of Javon Solomon, and he was plugged right into where Hoyt was. I'm not saying he was as productive, but he was productive. He was disruptive in the middle of the line. And like you said, Sean McDermott was definitely calling plays. He can spin this whole narrative about how Bobby's involved in all this. He's probably involved in the practice world of the defense, but I don't feel like during the games, I don't feel like he's, him and McDermott are going back and forth. What should we do here? And Bobby's telling him, hey, I think we should do this. I think that McDermott, you saw a defense the last 2 weeks that was very similar to the 2023 Bills, where they had 53 sacks. They were creating turnovers. The secondary was playing at top level. Like, when was the last time you saw Bills DBs bat passes down? It's been a very long time when there was pass defended by Bills DBs. And that leads me right into Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop had a coming out party yesterday. And I that hit that he laid on Kelce in the end zone,
terrific.
That's a guy who you can tell that's how he wants to play. He wants to play free. He wants to just roam around, chase after the ball, and do his thing. He had 4 pass breakups yesterday. When was the last time a Buffalo Bills defensive back had 4 pass breakups in one game? And there was times when they were impactful plays. It was a 3rd down. I remember the one, and he batted the ball down right over the middle. I mean, it seems like playing next to Jordan Poyer, I feel like, has kind of given him the confidence to just, he's comfortable with the guy next to him. And that's not a dig at Taylor Rapp. I just feel like Poyer's instilling that wisdom on the back end that he's like, okay, I know he's good over there. I'm just going to go do whatever. And this is why I say Sean McDermott's calling plays, because all the DBs have been extremely aggressive. And as we all know, Sean McDermott is a DB guy. Like, he is a DB safety cornerback whisperer. That was like his bread and butter when he was in Carolina, when he was in Philadelphia. And it's nice to see them even not having Taron Johnson and just having Max Hairston play his second game and things like that. It was very nice to see them all seem like they were just overly aggressive and they were attacking the ball. What's your thoughts on the secondary we can get into, Cole Bishop and
Yeah.
Max Hairston and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on overall on the Bills secondary?
Yeah. I put a tweet out this morning about Cole Bishop, just about his stats. Like you mentioned, 7 tackles, a tackle for loss, 4 pass deflections, and then he had that huge 4th down play where he batted a ball on a 4th and 3, 4th and 4, and then obviously the hit on Kelce. You mentioned Jordan Poyer, and look, Jordan Poyer is probably not at his peak athleticism anymore. He's not at his peak playing ability, but he knows the system, and he's always going to be in the right spot. Doesn't mean Jordan Poyer is going to make the play. Doesn't mean he's going to do what he's supposed to, but he's going to be in the right spot. So if you're Cole Bishop, and like you said, Poyer's in the right spot, I can do my job comfortably. And I'm not saying it wasn't because of Taylor Rapp, but Taylor Rapp is a little bit of a lunatic back there at safety, flying around and all that kind of stuff. But Cole Bishop was also hitting yesterday. He was flying around, taking legal shots at people. He was terrific. Christian Benford really didn't get his name called outside of the sack. Good. That's good. That's exactly what you want from your CB1. If I don't hear about you, you did a good job. I don't want to hear about Christian Benford for the rest of the year. And that's outside of him making an interception, picking up a fumble, or a sack like he did yesterday. I don't want to hear about him or see the back of his jersey, and we really didn't. So that was good. Maxwell Harrison, Dave, flies. His speed is undeniable. You saw that clip that's going around social media right now of him staying with Xavier Worthy.
Yep.
Xavier Worthy is one of the fastest, maybe not if the fastest guy in the NFL. Maxwell Harrison's right there.
For stride.
Yeah, stride for stride. Obviously, Maxwell Harrison had the interception. Nice play, nice pinpointing the ball and coming down with it. But the more impressive play was staying with Worthy. And I think as the weeks go on, we'll probably see it on Sunday against the Dolphins because of Jalen Waddle and his speed. The fact that I think Harrison his reps and snap count should keep going up, and Trey White's snap count should start to kind of tinker back a little bit, because I think Harrison I don't know if he's in the right spot always. His technique's maybe not always great because he's still young, but his speed can make up for all of that, right? And he was terrific yesterday. And Cole Bishop, like you said, I wrote it was the best game of his career. And he was good last week, I think, against Carolina.
Yeah.
So he is moving in the right direction and turning into a really good safety in year 2, where a lot of people had a lot of criticism about his year 1 play, a lot of doubts heading into year 2, and he's completely kind of blocked out that noise, and he's turning into a reliable, I trust Cole Bishop heading on Sunday against the Dolphins. I did not say that a month ago.
Yeah. And to me too, talking about Jordan Poyer, when he was signed to the practice squad, there was a lot of people that were critical because, same old Brandon Beane, bringing back familiar faces. Yeah. He's kind of old. That's why we let him walk. And we saw it when he was with Miami, right? We saw that he didn't, we saw he lost a step. And it's very apparent why he was brought back in. And it's a leadership aspect. Right now, I feel like what Jordan Poyer lacks in the physical aspect of his game, he makes up for it mentally. And that's not just on the field. That's what he's seen in practice in teaching to these young guys like Cole Bishop and Maxwell Harrison and even Christian Benford. And I think it's been a nice reminder of how valuable those players can be on a team with a lot of young ascending, talent that they've gotten either in the draft this year, last year. And it's really good to see, because I think a lot of Bills fans love Jordan Poyer. Say what you want about him going and playing for Miami and injuring Keon Coleman and stuff like that. It's just nice to see him back there controlling what he can control. And obviously he's helping Cole Bishop out a lot. So let's talk about coaching, because I feel like whenever we get to the postseason, we have to talk about how McDermott is outcoached by Andy Reid and about how the offense is outcoached by Spags, right? How do you feel the coaching went down yesterday?
Outside of a 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 screen pass, in general, it was terrific, right? Joe Brady and Josh seemed that they were in control of the offense, and defensively they seemed like they were in complete control on defense. And you're gonna have the plays against Mahomes, right? The 4th and 17 is the one play that's inexcusable. That can't ever happen. That and McDermott knows that. That was the one outlier from the Bills defense yesterday, in my opinion. But they would have had more sacks if they weren't going against Mahomes. Mahomes and Josh have that ability to create plays when the play breaks down. if you're going up against like a Daniel Jones, or if you're going up against like an Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott, quarterbacks that are not known for their mobility, right? And they don't make plays on the run as much, you're going to have more sacks. So Mahomes is an outlier. Allen and Lamar are outliers to that. You get pressure and it sometimes doesn't matter, right? But the Bills drew up pressure. They were aggressive and they thought might as well go get Mahomes. And I think at times in the past when they've played Mahomes, especially in the playoffs, they've sat back in a lot more zone coverage, rushed 4, and they kind of got picked apart at times. And the Bills also were able to get home with only rushing 4 a lot of the time yesterday. And it wasn't just sacks. It was quarterback pressures, making Mahomes batted balls at the line of scrimmage. We saw that one yesterday. Balls thrown away. Balls just not in the right spot because of pressure. So the Bills drew it up perfectly on defense outside of the 4th and 17 play. Offensively, they were good. They seemed like they were in control. I don't know if you saw that Spags quote about playing Josh.
I wish he would retire.
Yeah, he says, "Man, I don't want to play you anymore. I want you to retire." So
yeah.
Spags is one of the better DCs we've seen in the National Football League in a while, and he's usually in complete control, and he's good at getting after Josh. The Bills seemed like they knew what they were doing, where they were in control of their offense. If there was a blitz, they had to dump off to Shakir, right? Like you saw a lot of times when the Chiefs blitzed, it was a quick screen pass to Shakir and let him get in space. They used the tight ends well. The Bills coaching staff, 9.5, 9 out of 10. They seemed like they knew it. Obviously, they know what they're doing, but they seemed like they had one step ahead of what the Chiefs were doing offensively and defensively.
Let me ask you a question. I saw this floating around social media. Do you think Josh Allen's lost a step?
Like
speed-wise, like mobility-wise. Do you think that he's lost a step because it's year 8, right? And we can't expect the Josh Allen of hurdling and just running all over the place.
Yeah,
even a couple years ago, I've seen it floating around on X and social media that people think that he looks like the elusiveness is not there as much as it was. And now I think there could be a lot of different things that could go into that, where it's how the pocket is presented to him, what he trusts when he's rolling out, because we haven't seen a lot of those dynamic Josh out of the pocket, pointing guys, go run, and then he makes a nice play running to the sideline, either left or right. So I'll ask you, do you think that Josh Allen's lost a step?
He did have a nice 11-yard run yesterday, so gonna give him credit there. No, I don't think he did. I don't think he has, right? A couple of the sacks he took yesterday, he was making plays with his legs when he took the sack. It was just he couldn't get away from the third guy. Right. If someone gets open, and that could be a receiver conversation, if someone gets open, you're like, he didn't lose a step. There's a couple of times where he got sacked, but he got away from 2 guys already. Right. And the third guy got him, but someone got to get open. Like eventually Josh just can't run around forever. And most quarterbacks were sacked at the first time. So no. They have gotten away from the design runs. Like that is not in their offense anymore. And they've also probably told Josh, like, take it easy on the runs, depending on what game we're doing, because we need you to do it in the playoffs, right? Right. You want to preserve him for the postseason. Like in an AFC Championship game, you expect to see Josh run the ball a lot more because it's the AFC Championship game. In a potential Super Bowl, you would see Josh run the ball a lot more. In a game against the Panthers in Week 9, you won't. Right. I don't know if it's that. And I also think it's the receivers not getting open. And that's a receiver conversation. The play I'm talking about, Josh got sacked after breaking away from 2 guys. Someone gets open. He doesn't get sacked. So I don't think he's lost a step. I just don't know if they do design runs anymore. And I think they've probably told him to kind of take a minute, like not sugar high Josh, where he's just running around scrambling. And he has a good O-line. Like the O-line's really good. For the most part, there's no need to leave that pocket. Like that O-line is one of the better O-lines in football. Stay in the pocket. And I think yesterday he did stay in the pocket a lot more, because I don't know if I think we talked about this last week, but the fact that he scrambled a lot more, like he seems a little more erratic in the pocket at times this year. I thought yesterday was one of the better times where he's like, my O-line's really good. Let me trust my O-line. And you saw the completion percentage. You trust your O-line. If you see someone complete 23 for 26, you trust your O-line.
Right, 100%. All right, let's give out some game balls. I'll let you go first, and then I'll do mine. Who's your game ball for yesterday? It could be offense, defense, whatever you want. Who do you got and why?
We already talked about him, but I'm going to go defense. I'm going to go Cole Bishop.
Oh, he stole mine.
I knew I stole yours. I don't know how you don't give it to Cole Bishop, because the amount of times I texted some of my friends about just Cole Bishop, or just saying his name, and they knew exactly what I meant because how good he played in that game yesterday. And he's not a household name. He's not Kyle Hamilton back there. Like, no one really knows about him outside of Bills fans in general. And he was terrific. And someone put a tweet out about Cole Bishop on a random Sunday, and it's just an Ed Reid compilation of smoking guys in like 2010, because that's what Cole Bishop looked like yesterday. He was running around like a maniac, smoked Travis Kelce, had another couple hard hits, great pass deflections, a couple tackles for loss, a couple tackles, a handful of tackles. Like, he was all over the field yesterday. He made a legit impact yesterday. The Ed Reid thing was just funny because someone tweeted Ed Reid highlights, and this is Cole Bishop yesterday. It looked like, obviously, Ed Reid's a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying Cole Bishop's a Hall of Famer, so no one get mad at me for that. But he looked terrific yesterday, and it's his coming out party. I thought he was good against Carolina, so I did take your game ball. So sorry about that.
No, you're good. That's the Cole Bishop that we were sold on in the draft. That's the Cole Bishop that we were told after he was drafted, go back and watch his highlights. This guy's athletic. He's a Sean McDermott guy through and through. He likes to be around the ball. They can use him in all different kinds of packages. He's versatile. He's just a guy that Sean McDermott could have created in the lab. That's what we were sold on. And I think he didn't get a fair shake because he was injured before his first season. And then he came through, and I think he was still battling with some stuff. And then this year he got injured again in training camp. And then playing next to Taylor Rapp, who we've all been talking about, who just doesn't look like a starting safety. And now we've seen him play next to Jordan Poyer, and we've seen progression week after week. And it's starting to look like that's the Cole Bishop that we were all sold on during the draft process. So it's nice to see. I'll go with Maxwell Hairston because we were sold on him as being this fast guy who's going to bring energy to the defensive backfield. And for him to go stride for stride with one of the NFL's fastest receivers, I'm pretty confident in saying that this is why he was drafted. Yes, the Bills did need a corner, but he was drafted because of his speed. The Bills secondary lacked speed, and he was drafted not just for those situations like yesterday, but when you get into the playoffs and you're going up against fast number one receivers or fast deep threats from opposing teams. And to see him, I don't want to say he locked down Xavier Worthy, but stride for stride running down the field with him. He had that interception on that where he high pointed that ball. It was very nice to see. And we got to remember too, he missed a chunk of time with an injury. So the mental ability of him to come back, not from that, but also to get into game speed of the NFL that's just a testament to him and his work ethic and things like that. So it was nice to see in just his second NFL game. And I find it funny that quote that he mentioned in an interview about I get a chance to pick off Patrick Mahomes, and people took that and ran with it the wrong way, saying that he was going to pick off Patrick Mahomes. And now, ironically, here we go. His first career interception is against Patrick Mahomes. So I'm sure that ball is going in a case somewhere at his house. So, all right, Peter, anything else before we get out of here, man? It's a victory Monday. Bills beat the Chiefs 28-21, look dominant in both sides of the ball. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here, man?
I think you got to throw out 𝐷𝐭 Kincaid one more time. I know we talked about him earlier in the show, but 6 catches, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. Like, that's the guy you drafted in the first round. Like, that type of performance is why you drafted him in the first round. He's really coming around to be a really good tight end in this league.
So is that the Bills' number 1 wide receiver, even though he's a tight end? Pass catcher?
Would you say 𝐾𝐨 is probably still ahead of him?
I don't know. Would you? Based on where they were drafted and
I would still say Shakir.
I also feel like
but
going
Shakir,
back to when
two totally different like receiver and
right, but when I feel like Kincaid, you can go one way or the other. I feel like when Kincaid was drafted, that was a Ken Dorsey draft pick because Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator when he was drafted, and you saw how much he was used during Ken Dorsey's tenure before he got fired when the Bills were 6-5 in 23. And then Joe Brady took over, and then his targets went down in 23. And then last year, I don't know what happened last year, if it was the play calling, if it was just him and Josh were on the same page. But it seems like now he's back to the 2020 𝐷𝐭 Kincaid, but they're using him more vertically, where before it was just like 3rd and 7, it's Kincaid. 3rd and 8, he became like the Cole Beasley of the Bills offense in 2023, where now it's like he's running everything. He's doing all the routes. So that's why I'm kind of concerned if Brandon Beane looks at him and says, you know what, we got Dalton Kincaid, who's having a really good breakout season. We have 𝐼𝐸𝐲𝐿, who we just paid a whole bunch of money to. I just paid a whole bunch of money to Joshua Palmer. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing with Keon Coleman. That's why I'm thinking he's not going to do anything by the trade deadline. That's, I don't know. I'm torn.
The Keon Coleman not taking a step in year 2 has really hindered this Bills receiving core. Because if Keon Coleman's having the year 2 that maybe people thought, maybe people didn't think, whatever, that people maybe expected, or if he was having a good year 2, then you and I would not be talking about a receiver right now, Dave. We were talking about a D tackle.
I think Keon is who he is. I don't know if it's Keon or if it's the Bills. If it's Brady just not using him correctly, how would you use him, though? Because I feel like Joshua Palmer's your outside guy, right? You have 2 slot guys, essentially, in 𝐼𝐸𝐲𝐿 and Dalton Kincaid. Then you have your 2 fast, gadgety guys that you don't really use other than just gadgety or screenplays in Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel. So what are you supposed to do with Keon? To me, it's simple. When you get down to the red zone, just target him in the red zone because he should be able to go up and make a play and outmuscle DBs. But we haven't seen him be consistent enough when they have done that for him to go make plays. He's getting passes broken up by 5'9" DBs when he towers over them and he's got 30 pounds on him. And that's what we were sold on, is that he was going to be a physical receiver. He was going to be a jump ball 50-50 guy. He was going to do all this stuff. And we were told he's not a crisp route runner. He doesn't know the whole route tree. So, are we using him incorrectly? And if we are using him incorrectly, how are the Bills supposed to be using him to where it doesn't hinder taking targets away from the other guys? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did you watch the Falcons-Patriots game yesterday?
I watched some of it. Yeah, I watched the part of the third and fourth quarter.
So, one point, this has nothing to do with Keon. Falcons should have at least tied that game yesterday and had a chance to win the game. Missed an extra point, then just proceeded to punt the ball at the 50-yard line with 2 minutes left, and then never get the ball back and lose by 1 because they missed an extra point.
Right.
So, and Michael Penix decided to be bad again. So that was bad. The Patriots should have lost yesterday. So if someone tells you that, they're lying to you. Drake London, 9 catches, $118, and 3 touchdowns. That's how you're supposed to use Keon Coleman. I get it. Drake London's an elite receiver. He's really good. They throw jump balls to him, and they throw those slant passes. Those couple of Keon slant passes they give him?
Yeah.
He got one. I think he got one yesterday.
Yeah, he had one yesterday, yeah.
That's how they use Drake London. They throw those slant passes, a couple checkdowns, and then deep balls and red zone receptions. Drake London's exactly what Keon Coleman should be. Is tough because Drake London's really good, but that's like what you want it to be. Like what Drake London is what you want Keon to be. And he's not there yet. And it took Drake London a little while to get into the NFL. Drake London was he a top 10 pick? He was definitely a top 15 pick. I don't know if he was like 9 or
first
11.
round, yeah.
He was it was a top 15 pick for sure. But Drake London's a stud. He's a stud. So that's what they're supposed to use Keon as. Those slant passes, those deep balls, a couple post routes, kind of maybe those corner routes like 30 yards out route or 20 yards to the corner to the sticks or to the sideline where it's just Keon and just got to get his feet down, high point the ball. They don't use him right. But I also think it's a problem with Keon not getting open at times. So I think it's a combination of both. But Drake London's what you want from Keon in some aspect. That's the only comparison I can really see. Like I don't think DK Metcalf's a comparison in my opinion.
I think you got to scheme. I think you got to scheme Coleman open at this point, right? Obviously, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. He's on the roster. You spent a second-round pick. He was the 33rd pick overall. Yeah. Why can't you use him in a set? Like you said, if it's going to be slant routes, put him on one side and put 2 receivers on the other side that need to warrant coverage. So that way, if there's something available right away, Josh can hit him on that quick read. It doesn't need to be 30-yard reception. It can be, a nice 10-yard pickup or an 11-yard pickup like he had yesterday. And I feel like they keep doing this stuff where they're forcing him to the sideline and he's not, first off, that's not a high percentage pass anyways, but he's not going to, he just doesn't seem to be at a point where he's making those plays. So I feel like in week 1, they got him involved. And I think the confidence built as that game went on and he had 8 receptions for over 100 yards. And we all thought like, oh, here's the coming out party for Keon Coleman. Look at how the Bills are using him. line him up in formations that are going to make him be successful, where the coverage isn't warranted to be right there. Like you said yesterday, he ran a slant route. He doesn't need to be wide open. Just put the ball on him and let him pick up a first down. And I think that will build confidence within him in the offense. And that's, I think, how the Bills and Joe Brady need to kind of use him going forward. So I don't know. I've talked about 𝐾𝐭 for 2 weeks, and I just feel like there has to be a breaking point here soon. Like we're almost 10 games or 10 weeks into the season, and it looks like 𝐾𝐭 from last year after the injury, where it's just like, I'm not saying he's disinterested in the offense, but he's not becoming that part that everybody thought he was going to be. And it's a little concerning, but I guess let's let it play out and see where it goes from there.
He was better before the injury than like the 𝐾𝐭 before the injury
was really good. I thought
whatever we've seen after.
Yeah, I think he was on. It looked like he was on pace for about 50, 55 receptions, 800 plus yards.
Yeah.
With that huge average per catch he had. And he broke some big plays. I mean, he had a couple run after catch plays where it was like, we didn't know he had the yak ability, but it was on display, and he might have got caught from behind, but it was a 50-yard play. I mean, we'll take it. And now it's just like back shoulder fade, and it's incomplete, or a slant route for 3 yards. And it's just like, they need to figure it out.
He is second on the team in receptions
because they're forcing him the ball. And Joshua Palmer he's been injured.
Correct.
So
Joshua Palmer's played 6 games. Yes, correct.
Yeah. But I feel like they're force feeding him the ball. And I feel like if you are force feeding someone the ball, it should be the guy that has been consistently making plays, a Dalton Kincaid or a Khalil Shakir, guys that make plays. And ironically enough, this is a side note, I went back and watched some Bills offense from last year. There was a ton of games where the Bills targeted Khalil Shakir deep. So he's not just a slant guy. There was the Lions game, the Rams game, he had that nice deep catch. There was a couple other games where he caught some really nice deep passes, and he's able to do that. So again, we'll see what happens. Trade deadline is tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. I got John Hellkamp with me tomorrow. We'll be a little bit later tomorrow in the afternoon, hopefully with some Bills trade news, as the deadline is tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peter, anything else before we get out of here? What do you got going on this week, man?
Just some work stuff. That's
work stuff,
fun stuff. But no, Bills beat the Chiefs. Always exciting. That was a great game. So I know you can nitpick the game. It was a great. If you're just an NFL fan watching the late window's a little underwhelming. Like I said, until the Raiders Jaguars crapshoot in overtime, but it's Raiders Jaguars. Rams Saints was a blowout. That was a fun game. And Tony Romo was making some weird noises though. So that one noise was it the second quarter?
Can we talk about what happened to Tony Romo? Like when he first came on the scene, like people were questioning, like he was just weird, right? Like he had all these analytics, and he was just kind of like
knew a play was coming,
like Nostradamus with the plays, and it got to a point where I enjoyed Tony Romo because he gave you an insight if you're not an X's and O film studying person, and then what he said would come to fruition. Now it's like he doesn't finish sentences. It's just like
makes noises.
And then you're just waiting for the rest, and it just doesn't happen. So I don't know what's going on. And I saw a lot of Chiefs fans were bashing Tony Romo yesterday because he was, God forbid, complimenting the Bills and how they were playing. So
when Josh and Mahomes or like Lamar plays, he just can't control his happiness.
I don't think I mean, being a former quarterback, he's got to feel a certain way about watching guys that are just exponentially better than he was, physically gifted better than he was, because you can tell when he talks about, like you said, Lamar, Josh, Mahomes, a couple others, he's just like giddy, and he can't get over it.
He loves talking he loves you can go to a bar with him and just talk about quarterbacks with him for 24 hours. Like he just probably seems like a guy that just loves talking football. But yeah, he's been a little, and also like people get tired of it. Like when you're the new thing, you're like, oh, year 2, year 3, like, okay, right. And then year 4, 5, 6, 7, you're like,
I could listen to Greg Olsen all day.
He's good.
Greg Olsen is probably the best there is right now. So, all right, we'll stop critiquing the color analysts on the NFL games. Peter, we'll see you next week Monday, brother. You locked in?
Yeah.
All right, we'll do a post game for the Bills and Dolphins. Hopefully, it's another win. And like I said, I'll be back tomorrow right at the trade deadline around 4:00. So look for that. For Peter DiBiase, I'm Dave Myers. As always, on a Victory Monday, go Bills.
Go Bills.